Hi Year 2s, today we're going to be learning a little bit about the water cycle with a bit of a science experiment. We are in my kitchen and we're going to have a bit of fun with this pot of water. And what we're going to do is I'm going to talk you through the steps of the water cycle very quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. This is just an immersion and we'll learn a lot more about it next week. But I'm going to talk you through some of the important words that we'll be learning about the water cycle that we'll need to know what they mean, and some of them are quite big words, so just listen along and remember you can always go back and replay the video if you want to hear and learn more about these words. So we are going to be talking about the water cycle. Now the water cycle happens out in the environment. It happens with lakes and rivers and the ocean, but today we're going to be using this pot of water. Now our pot of water is representing maybe a small puddle or a lake or a river or any little body of water that you can think of, maybe a pool or a pond in the backyard, anything like that. So we're going to have to use our imagination and think that this is a puddle or something like that. Now what happens to a puddle or a lake out in the environment is that it starts off like this, a body of water. And then the sun comes out. Oh, there's my imaginary sun. And what it starts to do is it starts to warm up the water and it makes it warm. And what happens when the water gets warm, and I'm going to show you this very soon, we're going to talk about it first, is that it starts to evaporate, which is a doing word. The water starts to evaporate and turn into steam, which is a gas. Okay, a gas is like, it could be steam, or it could be oxygen that we breathe, or carbon dioxide that we breathe out, or helium that you put into balloons to make them float. So anything that you can't really see it, but it's sort of like air. So the water is going to get warm and turn into steam by evaporating. Now my light here is not as hot as the sun, and this takes a long time in the environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my stove. And I'm going to let the water get warm on its own, and we're going to come back and see what happens very soon. Bye. Okay, welcome back to our water cycle experiment. The water in the pot is now getting very, very warm. We talked about how the water gets warm. And when it gets warm, it starts to evaporate and starts to become steam. Now, we can't really see the steam right now. It's hard to see because it's a gas. Lots of gases, we can't see them. And I'm going to turn this down a bit. And out in the environment, we don't see puddles and lakes boiling like our pot here. It's a very slow process, so we often don't really see the water cycle happening, but we're just doing it this way so we can see the steps. Now, if I take my lid here and put it on the pot, we will see the steam will go onto the lid of the pot. Ready? Look at that. See how it kind of goes cloudy like that? That's our steam. Let's see if we can see it. No, we can't see it. But you can see that the steam is there because it hits the lid. Okay, so what's happening now is that in our water cycle, we are in the evaporation stage, which is when puddles or lakes and that, the water turns into steam, like we said, that we can't always see, and it evaporates and goes up into the sky. So when things evaporate, they go upwards towards the sky. Now I wonder if we think, you might like to pause and think for a minute, when all this water evaporates and goes up into the sky, what do you think that it eventually becomes? Pause and have a think. When the water goes up into the sky, it will become a cloud. So that's how clouds are made. Clouds come from water that's evaporated from the earth and has collected up in the sky, and that means we are at our condensation stage. So after the evaporation stage is the condensation stage. And in the condensation stage, the steam or the gas starts to become water again when it collects in the sky. So I'm going to use my lid again to kind of show you how a cloud creates. So we saw the steam go onto the lid before, and you might be able to see that it looks kind of watery and a bit wet now. Ready? Oh, I've only got 2 hands. So my finger's a bit wet now, and you'll see the line where my finger was. So we're going to use the lid to create a cloud. Let's see what happens. Turn it up a bit so it opens a bit quicker. So you can see that the steam now that it's collecting on our lid or our pretend cloud is turning back into little droplets of water. And those droplets get bigger and bigger the more steam that collects. So there we go. So clouds are made when water in the environment evaporates and the steam or the gas floats up to the sky and turns back into water again. Very interesting. Now I'm going to let this bubble away for a minute, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you the next stage of the water cycle.
Few moments later.
Okay, our water's boiling away there and more steam is going up and creating more condensation in our pretend cloud, which is the lid. Now, the next step of the water cycle is precipitation. There's lots of big words here, and as you can see from the little picture, that means when rain happens. So we're going to use our pot here. Oh, there you go, you could see the steam then rising up. We're going to use our pot and our lid, and I'm going to show you what happens when there is too much water in the clouds. So I wonder what you think might happen when there's too much water in the clouds. You might have guessed that yes, it will rain. So when there's enough water in the clouds and enough steam has gone up and gone through condensation and become a big grey cloud, then we have rain. So I'm going to be very careful because my pot will be hot. I'm going to show you by lifting the lid. See when, oh, there we go, there's lots of steam. And I'm going to turn my lid so that the rain falls down. See? And then once the rain falls down, you'll notice that we seem to be back at the start again. We've gone all the way around and we're back at the start with a little puddle of water. And you can see this water is still a bit warm because you can see some of the steam coming up. You can see it evaporating. So that's the whole cycle. I'm going to put this back on. And we might see a bit more of the steam collecting on the lid, maybe, if we're lucky. Oh, there it is. We'll do it slowly this time. So that's the cycle. It starts off as a puddle of water. It gets warmed from the sun, and then it goes through the evaporation stage. And it evaporates and becomes steam. Then it goes up as steam into the sky, goes through the condensation stage to become a cloud, and then once the cloud is big enough, it goes through the precipitation phase, which is the rain. And then as it goes down, the rain falls and it becomes a little puddle or a little lake again, and it all starts again. That's why it's called a cycle, the water cycle. So cycle means it goes round and round and round over and over again and just keeps happening. So there you go. Now what you can do is you can go to your KWL chart that you've started. You might have added some questions to it while you were watching, but you now need to fill out the L section, which is what you have learned about the water cycle. So there is lots of words that we learned. We learned condensation, precipitation, evaporation. We also learnt what steam is, clouds. We learnt the word evaporate, water. Water gets warm, becomes rain. So you might like to write in your learn column some of these words that you learnt and what they mean. You might like to write about how clouds are made. You might like to write about how the water gets warm and evaporates and becomes steam. You can write anything that you like that you've learnt about the water cycle. And Anna, Carla and I look forward to seeing what you write, and I hope you enjoyed watching our water cycle immersion. Bye!